Hej allihopa, mitt namn är Anders Österberg. Jag är riksdagsledamot för Socialdemokraterna och är ansvarig i utrikesutskottet för bistånd och utveckling. Och ikväll så har jag med mig 3 stycken personer. Alina som är här i Stockholm, Sergiy som är i Kiev och Inna som är någonstans i Ukraina. Och vi kommer föra ett kort samtal och sen så kommer vi släppa in lite olika medier som kommer att intervjua och ställa frågor. Och sen ska vi öppna upp för frågor rent allmänt. Varmt välkomna allihopa. Good evening and very welcome all of you. We start with you, Alina. How are you and who are you? You can introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alina Zubkovych. I'm the director of Nordic Ukraine Forum. So just a couple of weeks ago, we were a small organization that was focused on the expert opinion on Ukraine. We were making discussions, academic discussions, because all of us have some academic background. However, just during the night, we became sort of the resistance movement and are trying to help in the different sectors, both starting with their humanitarian aid, helping their newcoming Ukrainians here, but also spreading the information on Ukraine and trying to bring our messages to political elites and so that the war is immediately stopped. I can tell more about this maybe later on. Yeah.
Yes, please. Sergiy, maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm currently a lecturer in international law at a Kiev Mohila Academy in University in Kiev. I used to serve as a deputy prime minister for 4 years in the previous Ukrainian government. Currently, I'm in Kiev, just a resident trapped in the situation, trying to survive and helping out my neighbors and myself in the situation. So pretty much just a citizen on the ground.
Yes, and now I think we temporarily lost Inna. And Inna, you're
I'm
very
here.
welcome. You're
Yeah,
very
sorry.
welcome back. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes, I lost connection. Sorry. Yes, my name is Drahanchuk, and I'm Deputy Minister for Veterans Affairs of Ukraine. I'm responsible for all the most sensitive and difficult issues which face our veterans of Ukraine for this moment, including medical rehabilitations and other social issues. So, as we can say, for this moment, my ministry is one of the most important ministries of our government, because we are responsible for all those forces who protect Ukraine for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alina, you had a demonstration yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. I think it was already our 11th or 12th demonstrations during this period of the war.
And there is a lot of solidarity in the Swedish society, right?
Yeah, I see a lot of solidarity, really. There are a lot of local population that come and support. They bring their brochures. They say that the fly zone should be closed over Ukraine, and they're supporting a lot of Ukrainians who are coming as well. Yes, so I definitely see this support on ground. Absolutely. There might be another issue or on the EU and NATO level, and I'm quite disappointed with their conditions that we have at the moment. However, because I think that they have very weak stance, and it's just it is something that we should discuss more, because it's not enough to have the weapons. It is the more serious decision that has to be done to stop the war in Ukraine. Otherwise, I don't understand what they're waiting for. They will have war tomorrow in their houses if they don't make the precise decision they should made 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. Sergiy, how is the life in Kiev?
It's been fairly stable over the last week at least. We do have occasional hits in the residential buildings by the Russian missiles, but it's usually only 1 or 2. I think our anti-missile system has been working just fine for now. So everybody's on alert in Kiev, and I think we are still opposing the Russian aggression and getting ready for any possible return of the Russians, return of their attacks. They tried once in the first days of war. They failed. They were stopped. Now they're pushed back, but we expect them to get reinforcement and do another attack in a foreseeable future.
Inna, what are you doing right now?
Actually, the government of Ukraine is functioning as usual. We don't have any limits in our communication. In this moment, we're absolutely united. The process, which in previous times took much more time, longer to adjust any documents, I mean internal documents and rules of Cabinet of Ministers for this time, is absolutely quickly discussed and adopted. So there are absolutely clear position of all the members of the government, and we are absolutely united and don't have any discussions, something like discoordinations within the frames of our government. So that's why I can say that we are quite strong, and before this time we are not so consolidated. So it's a positive moment what we have for today, but of course the price of this moment is extremely high.
Yes, indeed. It's very injustice and unfair invasion that the Russians are doing right now. And now let's see if we can put Patrik Andersson from the newspaper Aftonbladet on this. Hello, Patrik. The floor is yours if you are there.
We're listening to you guys from our control room. I would like to start asking, Inna, can you tell us a little bit more about your responsibilities and how your work, what you're working with right now?
For this moment, we are trying to rebuild our rehabilitation system for veterans, and it includes all levels of rehabilitation: medical, social, and psychological support. For this moment, it's a huge challenge for all of us because these systems, I mean, the system of rehabilitation should be reformed, and actually it was one of the most important points and plans for the nearest 2 years. I mean, for 2022 and 2023. Actually, we should start the reform, which we planned to do together with WHO and our international partners to provide the new approaches to improve this system. But as we faced for today, we should not reform, but we should build this system from the very beginning. And that's why for today we are absolutely consolidated together with the Ministry of Health to build this new system for rehabilitation of veterans, and at the same time we develop all the social programs which we can provide our veterans for this moment, because the number of veterans in Ukraine for the beginning of this year was 400,050. For this moment, we foresee that the number of veterans will be more than 1 million. So you can imagine how difficult for our budget will be to provide them with all the social issues which they used to have before this period. So it's the most important strategic moments for the activity of my ministry, and we are consolidated together with our partners from the Ministry of Health and from the Ministry of Social Policy.
Yeah, and how would you describe the situation for your veterans right now?
Actually, we are proud of our veterans because for this tendency which I see for this moment, all of veterans, almost all of them, took their arms, and now they are fighting together with the new members of this of our armed forces. So most people who used to fight are doing it again for this moment. A lot of veterans who were abroad, they also came back to Ukraine, and it's also a good picture to demonstrate that the unity which we have for this moment, not only about political forces, but which our citizens have for this moment, is absolutely incredible. And this demonstration makes our nation, our country for this moment such strong as we have never been before this awful period for our country.
Yeah. Can you tell us something about how do you think the support from Sweden has been in this situation?
Actually, Sweden is one of the greatest partners. It's absolutely clear for all of us. And to be honest, not all our partners in declarative form can really prove and provide us with such assistance as you do. So, of course, we will be grateful for your continuous support concerning our clear messages which we send to our partners around the world about NATO. That for this moment, you can see that it's not only about our protection for our territories, it's about food crisis, which we definitely will see. It's about the number of refugees. It also will definitely be explained by this reason of no security in Ukraine. So it's not only about our internal issues to protect us, to close the sky, but it's also about such things which will be sensitive for other countries around the world. And this is a very important moment for clear understanding that it's not only about defense. It's about global policy, which we try to make to save the balance which we have for this moment.
And when your government discusses the war, what are you talking about? How do you see the future coming?
We don't have any doubts about our victory. It's it's the most important message for you, and thanks for your support, which we definitely feel from our side. We don't discuss that there can be some issues under negotiations period. We strongly know that all our values which we provide for this moment and which we make our political and not only political statements, but so as you can see that political statements, they are absolutely clear on the level of their implementation on the ground. So we definitely know that we will win, that the victory will be only for Ukraine. How long will it take place? It's very difficult to predict. I'm sure that no clear understanding has no country in the world. But we hope that we will be strong enough to protect the territories for all Ukraine. We definitely know that the temporary occupied territories of Crimea, of Donetsk and Lugansk region will be definitely be back to our territories as a whole. And I'm not sure that Putin was so strong as he seemed before this. So we definitely know that I explained to my colleagues before that, you know, Ukrainians, we feel him like something pity and we laugh about him. So, of course, a lot of our citizens died. Of course, he is a criminal, international criminal, and of course, he will receive everything possible according to the international law, or not maybe to international law, to the law of responsibility of those people who lost their relatives, their kids. But at the same time, we clearly know that one of the most important arms which we have for today, it's just jokes about him. It's a humor about Russia. And, you know, maybe it's one of the most effective arms which we have for today. Just to be strong and united against his personality and against Russia as a whole.
Yeah. How often do you speak to Zelensky, and what has he said about the support from Sweden?
I don't speak with him at all because I'm a deputy minister, and the cabinet of ministry is absolutely in a direct communication with the president. So all the activities are absolutely coordinated together with him. And as I said before, we are absolutely coordinated as we have never been before. And on all of the levels, I mean, the administration, local administration, and on the governmental level. So in this unique situation, we have a perfect communication inside.
And how do you see the possibility of negotiations with Russia?
You know, I'm definitely not authorized to communicate about these negotiations because it's very sensitive political issue, and I think that only our president can communicate it, or rather his advisors. So please let me not to discuss it because I'm really out of this. I don't know. I'm not authorized. Maybe Sergiy, as a consultant, as an advisor, he may say and share his vision, but I am like a representative of the government. It's definitely not my portfolio.
I can jump in here. I think everybody's, of course, in Ukraine watching negotiations. We don't have much faith in the goodwill of Putin or his negotiators. We do know that we can trust Russians. They've breached their promises before. So we've started from very opposite positions where we want to be an independent country within our international recognized borders. And Putin started by saying that we cannot exist at all. I think they've been softening their position, given that they cannot get a military advantage in Ukraine, but they're still bringing up issues that are simply not there. They live in their own world that is detached from reality. So I think that there is a chance that these negotiations will lead to something. For now, at least, they had a limited impact on allowing the humanitarian corridors to let people out of the war-affected areas. And this is also very important. We have millions of people trapped within the actual armed conflict where Russians are violating international law and shelling civilians committing war crimes. So to us, I think the priority is to get ordinary people out of those zones. And if that is possible because of this negotiation, that already makes sense to have them. But if we're talking about something bigger than that, a peace or armistice or some sort of agreement, I think the main point is that the Russians cannot be trusted. They've been lying before. They're going to lie now. Whatever they put on the paper, they will not keep their word. So whatever is ever agreed, the question is going to be who's going to be the guarantor, who's going to guarantee that this agreement will hold. I think that is the biggest question because no one in the world trusts Russia anymore.
No. I think the Ukrainian success in this war have astonished the whole world. Could you tell us something about the key to your success?
Just to be united about one main goal, and it's not about God, it's not about something material, it's about the national identity which we have just understood. And it's a moment that we will never be the same nation as we have been before the 22nd of February, the 24th of February. It's definitely a new nation appears right now, and which I think the best explanation is that our unity about one final idea of Ukraine. It's idea, of course, which we try to explain. It's not only European values. It's not only about civilized values. It's about those values which gathered all the nation to one point. And this point, the name of this point is Ukraine. And it's very important that it's not a political statement. We pay for this statement with our blood. It's very important for understanding. It's not something like perfect speech with the high political level politicians make on the UN platforms or other meetings. These political statements are proved by everything we do for this moment, like nation, not one personality. It's about the whole nation.
Thank you very much for letting us speak to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tack så mycket. And then we hand over to Dagens Nyheter, Mia Holmgren.
I also have some questions for Inna in Ukraine. And if you should explain the situation right now, how is the war going for Ukraine?
You mean the world going like our common life, or what do you mean?
Both way, both the fights and the common life.
I can't divide common life and the fights. For this moment, all Ukraine lives from the very morning till the very next morning with only one news from the touchline, and news about our victims and news about our victories. If you go for coffee, you can listen just about the news from the war. At the same time, as I said before, we try to be united. We try to not to lose a sense of humor, and this is such a unique moment when mothers on the ground with their children discuss not just the receipt of the pie, but at the same time the new weapons which we receive or which we don't receive to protect Ukraine. So it's something like absolutely impossible to explain. As I said, it's maybe just unique characters of Hemingway, I don't know, something like Hemingway novels appear right now. But we live from one side in something general idea and social and defense policy is the same for this moment.
And if you, if we talk about the war on the battleground, how is the situation for Ukraine right now?
We are strong, we are absolutely motivated. I can say it not from the Ministry for Defense, but from direct communication with our soldiers, that the most important thing for us is just not to be demotivated. And for this moment, I haven't met anybody on the governmental level, on the level of our soldiers, or on the level of our volunteers, who could say that he or she doesn't know what is the motivation of his activity or her activity. And that's why it's not only about the protection which we do need from your side, from other countries, to provide us with normal defense, not architecture, but these arms to defend us. It's about those motivation which we have and we will not be able to lose, definitely.
Okay, I don't know if you're in Kiev right now yourself, but how is the situation in the capital?
In the capital, situation is something like between normal life and war. From one side, it's a normal life because a lot of cafes, restaurants, and shops are opened and functioning. But at the same time, you definitely feel that the war is very close to you because every morning, almost every morning, Kiev is under the fire of Russian troops. I think that Sergiy will definitely explain what is the real situation in Kiev, because he is an active, was one very active element of this life in Kiev.
I can give you examples. So I was going today in the center to meet my friends. I haven't seen them for a while. So we were drinking coffee and talking, and then we hear the sound of a blast. And then we're reading in the media and in the social media that there was an attack on Kiev. It was luckily far away, but a house was hit. So we know that, but we continue talking because we were getting used to that. A couple of days ago, another debris of a missile hit several houses fairly close to where I live. So I was helping a woman who lives there to go to a store to buy the materials to cover the windows, because in all of the houses, all of the windows are out and it's fairly cold. And she works as a nurse. So she says, I work as a nurse in another part of a town, and I stay there overnight. I haven't been home for a week now. So I just came back because I knew of this attack. I just want to cover the windows, get rid of the broken glass, and then I go back to work. So that is, I think, is something that characterizes the situation. So we're fairly lucky. We're nothing compared to Mariupol or Kharkiv, where people are living in a humanitarian catastrophe, where people are shelled on a daily basis, where there's many casualties. We're lucky, much more lucky than them. So we do feel the war. We do have sirens several times a day, but we continue as far as possible with our daily lives, with whatever is helpful and necessary.
Okay, and is Ukraine getting enough international support at this time?
If I can tell from my perspective, so I've been following this a lot, I think we do get a lot of support, something that was hardly imaginable even a month ago. We do think that there's a specific military equipment that is necessary for us to be further effective against Russians. They failed to conquer Ukraine within days, as they were thinking, and we were strong enough to stop them. But now they're sending more troops. We've seen information that they are reinforcing their army, sending, bringing people on the planes from the furthest parts of Russia. So I think we do need more military equipment to be able to defend ourselves from even new troops that they're going to bring. It's also important that the other countries keep pressuring Russia in terms of economically and enforce the sanctions. I think more can be done. We're talking about canceling Russia. A complete boycott of Russian economy, Russian oil, Russian propaganda, and Russian influence. And that means cutting all the ties with them. That means exiting the market. That means not providing the Western technology that Russia is using to further its aggression against Ukraine. And this is where a lot of support, more things can be done. Unfortunately, we've seen some of the companies still not leaving Russia, and we've seen some of the companies financing Russian budget, and even some of the Western companies providing the details and technical equipment that is used during aggression. The dual-use equipment. So I think this is crucial. This is the point where we all have to be united, and we're gonna fight for all of Europe. It's for us for now to stop the Russian aggression, but we do need the support of everyone in sanctioning Russia, in canceling Russia, and in supporting us economically and with the military equipment to be able to continue doing that.
And if I
Okay,
may,
so
I also would like to ask that, of course, there is a lot of support, but however, the most important decisions were not yet to be decided, because there is still no EU membership for Ukraine. There are only discussions on this. And I think at least this symbolic decision of supporting Ukraine, who is actually fighting now for the security of the entire Europe, is something that Europe should grant immediately. And secondly, of course, the question of no-fly zone. I quite don't understand why this decision by NATO was not still decided. Where are the jet fighters? It is not only their humanitarian aid that Ukraine must receive, but however, this is the question of security of the entire Europe and Euro-Atlantics. So in my opinion, much more should be done, even though a lot of support is in hand in Ukraine, of course. And maybe. Because there is also the question.
I think you lost your connection. Even the internet sometimes can be bad here in Sweden.
Even in Sweden?
Yeah, even in Sweden. But they're also interesting about, there is at least one Swedish company that's are still functioning very well in Russia, Oriflame, for example.
Yeah, I think they made a sort of explanation that they are providing the necessary product, which I think is stretching the concept. We do realize that Russian people will have to be provided with food. It's amazing how Russia cannot even feed its own population, and with medicines, those that are necessary to keep the population healthy. So these are the essentials. I don't think anything else qualifies as such. Neither, we've seen, the Oriflame, beautifying is not something that, helps during the war or is necessary. We've also seen other things. There was an example of Bosch, a German company, where in the Russian armored vehicles that were brought into Ukraine and were shot by our army, they've opened it and they could see the Bosch details there because they're dual purpose, right? So only after that was made public, the German company said, oh, well, yeah, we're now stopping the operations in Russia. So I think it's a moral question right now. It does cost money, but I think this is something that if we all share, this is not something unbearable. If it's 5% from every one of us, minus 5%, it's minus 100% for Russia. Russia is really not an economic power anymore. They are only kind of a gasoline station with the military guys around it. They cannot produce anything, so they're really dependent on Western technology, and they're making a point of slashing the Western values in their propaganda by using the Western technology, right? So they're spreading the TV propaganda by using the Western equipment. I mean, as it boils down to that, right? And they are driving the expensive cars, wearing expensive clothes, traveling to Europe, buying expensive property there, and at the same time they are saying that the West has been dying and it has the values that they don't share, and I think we should stop that. I mean, I think we if we're united, we're in a position to make sure that they cannot continue aggression as a country.
And now
Let me add about
Yeah,
Oriflame
please add.
like a woman, just to explain you. It's not a customer oriented business for only one reason, because those women who were under the Russian fire in Mariupol and Kharkiv, they also used to use Oriflame. Can you imagine their pictures of died women, of died children, of those women who absolutely died emotionally on the AD of Oriflame in their future? So to be the new faces of Oriflame, just to demonstrate that they are supported, and the money which they owe their service, which they want to bring to save in Russia, that this business, they are the final recipients of their business activity in Russia. So I think that it's absolutely awful position from Oriflame. I didn't expect never such position like the user of this company in my life.
Thank you. And now we will let in Donald Boström.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm recently back from another conflict, the conflict in Ethiopia. And for journalists in Ethiopia, the possibilities to make proper report of the conflict was very much limited. So what is the possibility for international journalists to make a proper report from your conflict? Do you think, I mean, even taking this security matter in consideration, do you think we can give a fair, real report about the real situation? The question to Inna or Sergiy, whatever.
Alina.
Yeah, okay. I will just start maybe with saying that this is something that couldn't be called a conflict. This is the war, and already using the proper formulations is something that we should start with. And I understand the reason why we misuse the words, because we don't have the proper expertise on Ukraine. This is something that we lack from the beginning of 2014, since the annexation of Crimea, because we have the expertise on Russia. We have a lot of centers on that. However, we don't know much on Ukraine, really, on the history, on the culture, and so on. And therefore, no one was able to predict how will Ukrainian army resist in this war, even on the eve of their this aggression and violation. And therefore, in order to talk objectively on the war, we should start reading much more on the academical research made about Ukraine by Ukrainian scholars or someone who is dedicated to the studies. This is first thing that we should do.
Yeah, thank you.
If I can jump in, Donald. So
yeah, please.
I think it's a modern armed conflict in the sense that a lot of the information goes out of it as things are happening. Many people here have smartphones. People are eyewitnessing things and immediately reporting what they see, what has been happening. We see a lot of satellite images. We see information from various sources, from people on the ground, from various actors. Reporters have been very active, and I mean, Ukraine has always encouraged independent press and presence of the reporters on the ground, and they have access to all of the territory of the country, of course, the security situation permitting. Unfortunately, already 3 reporters lost their lives in Ukraine. It's a very dangerous work right now, and some of the people are very brave who do that. Because of them, we see what has been happening in the worst places in Ukraine right now. We see live reports from Mariupol on what's going on there on the Russian shell. And because of the reporters, among others, we could document the war crimes committed by Russia as they're happening and transfer this information to an international criminal court in The Hague. And no matter how long this war continues, no matter what the peace agreement is, what is important to us that all those stories of the people are being told, and all the war crimes committed by the Russians are documented, and people who perpetrated them will be held responsible. Because what I think we've learned from the history is that when the perpetrators are not tried in the court and the facts are not established and people are not found guilty, that means that opens the possibility of repetition, that opens the possibility that things will come back and the war comes back. So I think we do have a fairly full picture of the conflict. Reporters are very important, not only professional journalists, but people, civic reporters, as we call them, people who take risk and film what they see and report as eyewitnesses of what's been happening. And actually, our armed forces get a lot of information from Ukrainians who sort of report on the movement of the Russian armed forces. Again, I think it's something that all of us have been talking. It's not only just Ukrainian armed forces that protecting the country. It's everyone here who is, to the extent possible, is trying our best to bring the victory closer, whether by observing or helping the army, or taking the arms, or supplying the army, or helping the refugees.
Yeah, the information and the work of the journalists are extremely essential in every war, of course. But so how do you find the outcome of the international media coverage of the war so far?
I've been following the French media, British, American, and the Germans, Deutsche Welle, France 24. I think they get a fairly objective picture, unlike the first Russian aggression in 2014, where there was a lot of confusion, a lot of disinformation, and Russians tried to press their narrative. I think this time they fell in this disinformation and propaganda. And because of this experience of continuous Russian propaganda, the Western media are much more prepared. What is important, and we think the good media is doing that, having a specific unit dealing with unveiling Russian propaganda, dealing with the propaganda that is surrounding this war. And this is now part of every modern conflict, where propaganda or information warfare becomes just as important as the actual fight, because you can program what people think about the situation. And therefore, I think in this situation, we are much better prepared. We see that Russian propaganda has not been effective outside of Russian borders. And I would say again, I've seen those news presenters, radios, and newspapers are being present on the ground or talking to many people. And what is important now, again, unlike in some previous decades, you can talk to ordinary people. You don't have to talk only to politicians or army representatives. You can talk to everyone, because people are on the ground, they're watching, they're analyzing the information, they're eyewitnesses, and you can report based on what is happening actually with people's lives. So I think I'm quite satisfied both with the quality and quantity of reporting on the situation.
Let me add, please, one very important moment, that maybe one of the strongest weapons against Ukraine were Ukrainians, because Russian propaganda, the final recipients of their propaganda also were Ukrainian people. This period, new period of Ukrainian history, absolutely demonstrated that when people, Ukrainians, are united, that, as Sergiy mentioned, Ukrainians, general Ukrainians, not politicians only, are the best providers of all the information. That's why when we broke all these Russia propaganda channels and Ukrainians became united around one goal, we became very strong in our communication campaign without any particular explanation from offices what to say. You may ask anybody, and for this moment we have a unique channels for our fights, for our protections, all these QR codes and all other instruments for general people can be involved in this defense campaign of the country. Just you may send any with the special channels of communication from our security service with particular presence of groups of Russian troops. And so can you imagine that one person can be not only one in the field, but to feel themselves just united with the special services of Ukraine in the idea of defense of their country. So it's about information campaign as well. So there should not be special reporters or journalists. Anybody who live in Kharkiv, Mariupol, or in Sumy, having their telephones, can provide this information to their friends, and then their friends from BBC, CNN, and other channels will bring this information from the bottom to the top.
Thank you so much. Now you answered several of my questions. Excellent. Can you describe the most likely scenario in the coming weeks of the war in Ukraine?
Ukraine will win, and Russia will stop it being. It will be destroyed. So it's the only one perspective which we see for Ukraine. And talking about victory, we definitely know that about any compromises which are under the discussion in several countries, that the position of the politicians of Ukraine, I mean of the president of Ukraine, is absolutely consolidated with the position of our nation. So the only victory which we can admit is when Russia will be destroyed, and when Ukraine will be the strongest country, even after this war.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Donald. Yes, and then we have some other questions that has come in. One is to Sergiy. How can the West help Ukraine using its logistics? What is needed?
You mean logistics?
Yeah.
I think, one thing that is important is taking care of Ukrainian refugees. Around 3 million people left the country, mostly women, children, and elderly. Men cannot leave the country of the age of 18 to 60. We're here to defend our country. Many people were conscripted to the army. There are many more willing. This is not necessary for now, but we're standing ready to defend our country. But we want you to take, and we ask you, and we've seen this happening, taking care of our Ukrainians who are out of the country for the sake of their security. If the fight continues, there can be many more people. And I don't know how long this will take, but I hope that you are able to provide them a decent life, to integrate them for time being in your societies, give them the opportunity to get to know, to be together as a community, to learn some language, maybe even find a job or studies. So that's one thing, taking care of our people who are outside the country for the security reasons. But also I think it's important that the European help that is coming is well channeled, is coming timely. I mean, for now, we have enough resources. We do need the equipment maybe the fuel, other things. But I'm sure that if this conflict continues, we will need not only the money, but we will also need the people and technology and specialists who can assist us. So I think that what is important to us is to have this very well organized and well coordinated help to be able to bring the help where it is necessary. And while the logistics in Europe is well established, the problem happens in Ukraine. Unfortunately, Russians have not been allowing the humanitarian aid to come to places where it is needed. Where I am, the supermarkets are open. I don't lack anything, but there are places, and like Mariupol, Sumy, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, where people have been surrounded by Russians for 2 weeks without light, electricity, hot water, without food provided, with these awful shelling, hiding in the shelters. So they need the medicine, the food, and of course security. So I think what is important, and I think that's where Sweden could help us as a third party, either itself or through international organizations like Red Cross, is to pressure Russia into accepting humanitarian aid and letting it go through, because that's what they've been doing in Crimea and Donbas before, and that's what they're doing now. They're blocking the Ukrainian humanitarian aid and international humanitarian aid, and only allow their Russian aid to come and use it in propaganda purposes, saying, well, look, Ukraine has forgotten about you. International community doesn't care about you. We are providing you with food. So I think this is something that has to be corrected. So within the country, we're doing our best. We're repairing all the damage done by Russians, and they've been bombing our infrastructure throughout all of the country using their long-haul missiles. We've been repairing that, but without an international support and mediation, we're not able to force them to observe the humanitarian corridors and channeling these humanitarian aid to people which are really in need.
Let me add, Anders, please. It's very important for my, if I may say, request or just recommendation, not to permit start any discussions about the price which Europe or the world pay for this war. Because when I saw that French people were deeply concerned about the price for gas, it's absolutely awful just to understand that we pay for European values by our lives, and somebody just being in absolutely perfect Paris or Nice can discuss the price which they pay for our blood. It's something like that. They are the same enemies, not for Ukraine, but they support Russia when they try to make just particular equivalents. Just something that they want to make, try to find this price. I mean, when they try to compare material and this something which cannot be accounted for this which we have for today. And one very important moment, not to be used, not to feel that it's normal when Ukraine every day say the numbers of victims, because of course there were several red lines when we understood that it was the most awful day in our history. But the next day brings us something much more awful, numbers of victims of Ukrainians. And it's very important not to feel that it's normal life when you will hear and you will know the new numbers of victims, of children, of women who die in this war. It's very important to be united around Ukraine as we are united around Europe and around the world. So it's my very important message to you and to all those people who demonstrated this support of Ukraine for this moment.
Thank you, Ina. Next question is to Alina. When is the next demonstration and where?
Yes, you're welcome to join us next Saturday at 12 o'clock at Sergiy Story.
12 o'clock, Sergiy Story.
Yes.
Thank you. And then we take the last question. There are many questions, but we take the last question. And it is about how do you see Belarus acting right now and allowing Russian troops in its territory? And will Belarus join the war against Ukraine?
Unfortunately, I say that they will do it. And we tried to use all our channels of communication on the level of military channels, on the level of personal communication, on diplomatic channels out of Russia. But for this moment, there are no illusions that they will do. But of course, our soldiers, our army are waiting for them a lot. And, they're just waiting for them just to demonstrate that Ukrainians are very ready to face, and they are looking for this meeting with them on our land.
I will add to that. Well, Belarus has been part of this aggression since the beginning. Without Belarus, Russians would not be able to threaten Kiev as they've been threatening since the very first days of the armed attack. Belarus has allowed to use their airports and airfields for launching attacks against Ukraine. They've been harboring the Russian military forces. They've been helping to conceal the Russian casualties because they are hiding the Russian bodies of Russian soldiers, etc., etc. But I think the Putin pressed Belarus further into actually attacking Ukraine by Belarusian forces. Unfortunately, just recently, the Belarus ambassador left Ukraine, which is always a sign of war. And I think we're expecting a Belarus attack on Ukraine's territory in the western part, which was not previously under attack. So it seems that Putin is using all in his powers, and he has a firm control over Belarus dictator now. After he stole the elections from the Belarus people and suppressed all the domestic opposition. So we have no sentiments. We do see this as a threat. We do see this as a threat specifically because Russians took the control over Chernobyl nuclear power station, and we've had reports that people who worked there could not leave to go home because they live in the city that is controlled by Ukraine. So they've been working there nonstop for 2 weeks or something. They and that creates all kind of possible problems for the safety in Ukraine and beyond the borders. So unfortunately, Belarus, I think, is highly likely to attack Ukraine, but it has been instrumental in helping the Putin's Russian aggression since the very first day of the war.
Let me add something about the mood of our soldiers. So they see that there are only two variants for them, for Belarus troops, just to be a meet. And they definitely and have clear understanding that Russia will use these soldiers just like a general meet. And another variant, more positive and optimistic for these Belarus soldiers, just to be war prisoners, Sergiy, здатись. Як сказати правильніше?
Surrender.
So just to enter our territories and then to go to Ukrainian prison. It will be the most optimistic variant for them. Just to.
And I would like also to add that it's absolutely essential to understand that Russia will not stop in Ukraine. And with Belarus, maybe with some other alliance as well, it will just go further. So in order to stop this bloody war, we first of all should understand that it is not the new normality. We cannot get used to this. We need to act united. So what can we do? We can, if we're just local citizens, we can donate, we can press our governmental institutions to press further international institutions to impose the no-fly zone. We should sign the petitions that will grant membership to Ukraine as the EU member country. there are many more ways how we can help Ukraine at the moment. Please also check our website, Nordic Ukraine Forum. There is the list of different ways you can become also the volunteer. You can contribute as an expert. So there are many ways, but the most important, we just need to act unitedly, because otherwise tomorrow we will not have the safe, not only Ukraine, but also Europe as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Yes, and then we will end tonight's session. Thank you all for being here, and it's been very useful information. And then I will just end with Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!
Героям слава.
Thank you from the very heart. Thank you.